Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Junius Maltby channel as we journey through history in coinage and another authentic silver denarius. This is coin number 10. Glad you could make it. Here we are again looking at another authentic, genuine, certified antiquity. A silver denarius of Rome, ancient Rome. If you saw the last video, and it is important that you do because there's a lot of pre-material in that one on the first denarius that was also pictured here alongside this one that we covered. We covered a tremendous amount of material. And that video just got too long. It was over 30 plus minutes on the one coin. I had anticipated doing both coins in the one video. It just wasn't possible. And so here we are. This is that second coin I wanted to discuss. This is another denarius, a silver denarius of ancient Rome from 75 BC. And we're going to talk about this coin, going to describe it, go into the details of it, and then we've got a tremendous amount of history to cover regarding the coin as well. So thank you for tuning in once again as we look at ancient Roman coinage. Now let's get into this coin because there is a lot to cover. The obverse lettering, Maximus. The bust of Libertas, Liberty, right, draped, wearing a diadem, earrings and necklace behind Peleus. Libertas is Latin for liberty or freedom. It's the Roman goddess and personification of liberty. She became a politicized figure in the late Republic, featured on coins supporting the Populares faction, and later those of the assassins of Julius Caesar. Caesar was assassinated by a group of senators on the Ides of March, the 15th of March of 44 BC. The name Libertas, freedom, is a derivation from Latin, liber or liber, free, stemming from Proto-Italic lipero, and ultimately from Proto-Indo-European, and I cannot pronounce it, it's like H. Lutero, belonging to the people, hence free. Libertas was associated with the pileus, commonly worn by the freed slave. And these are familiar terms and iconic images that we also see carried through to American coinage, if you're familiar with the pileus, libertas, Lady Liberty, all of those things. It's incredible. Among the Romans, the pilus, a pointed or close-fitting cap worn by ancient Romans, made of felt, was the emblem of liberty. When a slave obtained his freedom, he had his head shaved and wore instead of his hair an undyed pilus. Hence the phrase servos ad pilium vocare, to call servants to the pileus. A cone-shaped hat that symbolized one's status as a freed man. It is a summons to liberty, by which slaves were frequently called upon to take up arms with a promise of liberty. Reminds us of the quote, "A well-instructed people alone can be permanently a free people," unquote. That's from James Madison. Maximus refers to the issuer, moneyer, Caius Ignatius Maximus. The Ignatia was a plebeian family at Rome. The meaning of the Latin name Ignatius is fiery. A gens, this was the gens Ignatia, is a group of families in ancient Rome who shared a name and claimed a common origin. The anthropology is like a group of people who are related through their male ancestors. Praenomina, the first of the Ignatii, known to history, bore the Oscan praenomina Gellius and Marius. The Ignatii, who settled at Rome, favored Gnaeus, who also made use of Gaius, Lucius, Marcus, and Publius. The Ignatii do not seem to have been divided into distinct families during the time of the Republic. Most of the Ignatii, or Ignatii, I don't know exactly how to pronounce it, they bore no cognomen. And if I'm familiar with that word, it means it's like surname, your cognome in Italian or Latin. But individuals are known with the surnames Celer Maximus, Rufus, and Veratius. Celer means swift. Well, that means where we get the word. That must, if I'm not mistaken, that would be where we get the word like accelerate from. See how amazing Latin is when you start reading through it. Celer means swift, while Maximus is great. Yeah, something's like to the max, maximum. It's it's great or greatest. Rufus, meaning red, was typically given to someone with red hair or a ruddy complexion. And that's where we see this reverse lettering, C, Ignatius, CNF, CNN. And that's essentially translated, the symbols of all of that, abbreviations at some points for parts of the name, is Caius Ignatius, son of Cneius, great son of Cneius. Now this ancient Roman Republic coin, this Ignatius, CNF, CN Maximus, from 75 BC, this silver denarius has the draped diademed bust of Liberty, as we discussed, and the Maximus behind. On the reverse, we see Roma and Venus standing, facing the latter, caressed by Cupid, or on prow either side. Now let's get further into the origins here and some of the history. The issuer, again, to review, the moneyer who issued this denarius, were the Ignatii. Now they were of Samnite origin, and at least some of them had settled at Teanum. At the end of the Social War, the greater part of these appear to have removed to Rome, where 2 of them were admitted into the Senate, though a branch of the family seems to have remained at Teanum. And now let's hear from Mrs. Maltby as she reads to us the Samnite Wars, 341 to 290 BC.
Toward the end of the 5th century, while Rome and the Latins were still defending themselves against Volsci and the Aequi, the Romans began to expand at the expense of Etruscan states. Rome's incessant warfare and expansion during the Republic has spawned modern debate about the nature of Roman imperialism. Ancient Roman historians, who were often patriotic senators, believed that Rome always waged just wars in self-defense, and they wrote their accounts accordingly, distorting or suppressing facts that did not fit this view. The modern thesis of Roman defensive imperialism, which followed this ancient bias, is now largely discredited. Only the fighting in the 5th century BC and the later wars against the Gauls can clearly be so characterized. Rome's relentless expansion was more often responsible for provoking its neighbors to fight in self-defense. Roman consuls, who led the legions into battle, often advocated war because victory gained them personal glory. Members of the Centuriate Assembly, which is noted above, decided war and peace, may sometimes have voted for war in expectation that it would lead to personal enrichment through seizure and distribution of booty. The evidence concerning Roman expansion during the early Republic is poor, but the fact that Rome created 14 new rustic tribes during the years 387 to 241 BC suggests that population growth could have been a driving force. Furthermore, Romans living on the frontier may have strongly favored war against restless neighbors, such as Gauls and Samnites. The animal husbandry of the latter involved seasonal migrations between summer uplands and winter lowlands, which caused friction between them and settled Roman farmers. Though the Romans did not wage wars for religious ends, they often used religious means to assist their war effort. The fedial priests were used for the solemn official declaration of war. According to fedial law, Rome could enjoy divine favor only if it waged just wars, that is, wars of self-defense. In later practice, this often simply meant that Rome maneuvered other states into declaring war upon it. Then Rome followed with its declaration, acting technically in self-defense. This strategy had the effect of boosting Roman morale and sometimes swaying international public opinion. Rome's first major war against an unorganized state was fought with Fidenae, 437 to 426 BC. and this was a town located just upstream from Rome. After it had been conquered, its land was annexed to Roman territory. Rome next fought a long and difficult war against Veii, an important Etruscan city not far from Fidenae. Later, Roman historians portrayed the war as having lasted 10 years, 406 to 396 BC, patterning it after the mythical Trojan War of the Greeks. After its conquest, Veii's tutelary goddess, Queen Juno, was solemnly summoned to Rome. The city's territory was annexed, increasing Roman territory by 84% and forming 4 new rustic tribes. During the wars against Fidenae and Veii, Rome increased the number of military tribunes with consular power from 3 to 4 and then from 4 to 6. In 406 BC, Rome instituted military pay, and in 403 BC, it increased the size of its cavalry. The conquest of Veii opened southern Etruria to further Roman expansion. During the next few years, Rome proceeded to found colonies at Nepet and Sutrium, and forced the towns of Falerli and Capena to become its allies. Yet, before Roman strength increased further, a marauding Gallic tribe swept down from the Po River Valley, raided Etruria, and descended upon Rome. The Romans were defeated in the Battle of the Allia River in 390 BC, and the Gauls captured and sacked the city. They departed only after they had received ransom in gold. Henceforth, the Romans greatly feared and respected the potential strength of the Gauls. Later, Roman historians, however, told patriotic tales about the commanders Marcus Manlius and Marcus Furius Camillus in order to mitigate the humiliation of the defeat. Roman power had suffered a great reversal, and 40 years of hard fighting in Latium and Etruria were required to restore it fully. The terms of the Second Treaty between Rome and Carthage, 348 BC, show Rome's sphere of influence to be about the same as it had been at the time of the First Treaty in 509, but Rome's position in Latium was now far stronger. During the 40 years after the Second Treaty with Carthage, Rome rapidly rose to a position of hegemony in Italy, south of the Po Valley. Much of the fighting during this time consisted of 3 wars against the Samnites, who initially were not politically unified but coexisted as separate Oscan-speaking tribes of the central and southern Apennines. Rome's expansion was probably responsible for uniting these tribes militarily to oppose a common enemy. Both the rugged terrain and the tough Samnite soldiers proved to be formidable challenges, which forced Rome to adopt military innovations that were later important for conquering the Mediterranean. Despite its brevity, 343 to 341 BC, the First Samnite War resulted in major acquisition to the Roman state of the rich land of Campania, with its capital of Capua. Roman historians modeled their description of the war's beginning on the Greek historian Thucydides' account of the outbreak of the Peloponnesian War between Athens and Sparta. Nevertheless, they were probably correct in stating that the Campanians, when fighting over the town of Capua with the Samnites, allied themselves with Rome in order to utilize its might to settle the quarrel. If so, this may have been the first of many instances in which Rome went to war after being invited into an alliance by a weaker state already at war. Once invited in, Rome usually absorbed the allied state after defeating its adversary. In any event, Campania now somehow became firmly attached to Rome. It may have been granted Roman citizenship without the right to vote in Rome. Campania was a major addition to Rome's strength and manpower. The absorption of Campania provoked the Latins to take up arms against Rome to maintain their independence. Since the Gallic sack of Rome in 390 BC, the city had become increasingly dominant within the Latin League. In 381 BC, Tusculum was absorbed by being given Roman citizenship. In 358 BC, Rome created 2 more rustic tribes from territory captured along the Volscian coast. The Latin War, 340 to 338 BC, was quickly decided in Rome's favor. Virtually all of Latium was given Roman citizenship and became Roman territory, but the towns retained their local governments. The large states of Praeneste and Tibur maintained nominal independence by becoming Rome's military allies. Thus the Latin League was abolished, but the legal rights that the Latins had enjoyed among themselves were retained by Rome as a legal status. The Latin Rite, and used for centuries as an intermediate step between non-Roman status and full Roman citizenship. Rome was now the master of central Italy and spent the next decade organizing and pushing forward its frontier through conquest and colonization. The Romans soon confronted the Samnites of the Middle Liris, or modern Lyri, river valley, sparking the Second or Great Samnite War, 326 to 304 BC. During the first half of the war, Rome suffered serious defeats, but the second half saw Rome's recovery, reorganization, and ultimate victory. In 321 BC, a Roman army was trapped in a narrow canyon near the Caudian Forks and compelled to surrender, and Rome was forced to sign a 5-year treaty. Later, Roman historians, however, tried to deny this humiliation by inventing stories of Rome's rejection of the peace and its revenge upon the Samnites. In 315 BC, after the resumption of hostilities, Rome suffered a crushing defeat at Lautulae. Ancient sources state that Rome initially borrowed hoplite tactics from the Etruscans, used during the 6th or 5th centuries BC, but later adopted the manipular system of the Samnites, probably as a result of Samnite success at this time. The manipular formation resembled a checkerboard pattern in which solid squares of soldiers were separated by empty square spaces. It was far more flexible than the solidly massed hoplite formation, allowing the army to maneuver better on rugged terrain. The system was retained throughout the Republic and into the Empire. During these same years, Rome organized a rudimentary navy, constructed its first military roads. For instance, construction of the Via Appia was begun in 312 BC and of the Via Valeria in 306, and increased the size of its annual military levy, as seen from the increase of annually elected military tribunes from 6 to 16. During the period 334 to 295 BC, Rome founded 13 colonies against the Samnites and created 6 new rustic tribes in annexed territory. During the last years of the war, the Romans also extended their power into northern Etruria and Umbria. Several successful campaigns forced the cities in those areas to become Rome's allies. The Great Samnite War finally ended in Rome's victory. During the final phase of this war, Rome, on another front, concluded its third treaty with Carthage, 306 BC, in which the Carthaginians acknowledged all of Italy as Rome's sphere of influence. The Third Samnite War, 298 to 290 BC, was the last desperate attempt of the Samnites to remain independent. They persuaded the Etruscans, Umbrians, and Gauls to join them. Rome emerged victorious over this formidable coalition at the Battle of Sentinum in 295, and spent the remainder of the war putting down lingering Samnite resistance. They henceforth were bound to Rome by a series of alliances.
Well, now let's take a look a little bit closer at some Denarius comparisons and silver content. We discovered in the last video how the currency became debased, devalued, diluted over time, less and less silver content as they essentially inflated the currency. And we also mentioned it's difficult to really compare purchasing power or buying power to the units of exchange we use today, the money of today, because life back then was so much different. We discussed how many variables there were, everything from diet to just the everyday functions in society, our culture, our habit, what we expected to eat, how much. People eat a little bit more today than in the past. So again, it's very difficult, even occupationally, to compare the money of 2,000 years ago to the money of today. And I'll read here from some links. It is difficult to give even rough comparative values for money from before the 20th century, as the range of products and services available for purchase was so different. Classical historians often say that in the late Roman Republic and early Roman Empire, circa 27 BC, the daily wage for an unskilled laborer and common soldier was about a denarius, with no tax deductions. And as we discussed, again, I'll repeat some things here in these videos, the Roman soldiers were often paid in certain bonuses from the emperors or those they served, and that was kind of like an extra encouragement to keep those in power in power. So they'd get that one denarius, those common workers, and that was with no tax deductions, or about $20 US in bread is what it would purchase. And this is dated, but about $20 or so inbred. During the Republic, from about 509 BC to 27 BC. Now remember, this coin's around 75 BC, so this would have existed during the Republic. And again, the other problem is that Rome existed for so long during those different time spans with the dilution of the currency, things that were changing economically, politically, and even regionally. Purchasing power of a denarius varied city-state to city-state. I mean, you could be in Rome and then you could be right outside the city in a more rural setting, and the purchasing strength of that coin would be dramatically different. But during the Republic, which is the time period of this coin, legionary pay was about 112.5 denarii a year. 112 denarius like this, 112.5, which is, about 0.3, a third of a denarius a day if you do the math. Later doubled by Julius Caesar to 225 denarii. So again, 0.6 per day. So, and that's why, again, it's all over the place. That the sources we quoted last time, it did discuss how some soldiers, depending where they were, and again, the time period was sometimes half, or some unskilled workers or workers that weren't as skilled as others would get less than that denarius per day. But you can see here, Julius Caesar raised it to about 225 denarii, or 0.6 per day, with soldiers having to pay for their own food and arms. Centurions received considerably higher pay. Under Augustus, the lowest rank of centurion was paid 3,750 denarii per year. That's incredible. 3,750 denarius per year. I'm going to have to task somebody who can do the math and throw it down in the comments. 3,750 denarius at roughly 4.5 grams of silver. What is the pay of a centurion under Augustus if he's making 3,750 denarius per year at 4.5 grams per denarius? As a matter of fact, I'm going to do the math right now, and let's come up with a number. Now, we've got the numbers given to us according to what I'm reading here. So we're going to go with Augustus, his time period, and at that time, the weight of the denarius fell to about 3.9 grams according to historical records. So we're going to go with 3.9 grams as the weight of a denarius. The one you see here being a little bit earlier, struck earlier than the time of Augustus, is heavier. This one, I believe, weighed in at about 4.05 grams. A lot of those, when Rome did its recoinage in 211 BC, was about 4.5 grams per denarius. But again, for the sake of the math here and the time period, we're just trying to have some fun and figure out what it was a soldier, the lowest rank of centurion. This is, again, the lowest rank of centurion would have been paid under Augustus, because it says about 3,750 denarii per year, with the highest rank at 15,000. I'll do the highest rank guys next. We'll see how much they made. So here we go. 3,750 denarius at about 3.9 grams equals 14,625 grams of silver. Now we've got 31.103 grams per troy ounce. That's easy math. Let's do the math. We come up with about 470.204669. So 470.2 troy ounces of silver. Now, silver's all over the place in the modern world, and I know there's some disagreement. We might think it's worth way more than it is today, but I got to go with what they're quoting with the markets. I'm going to give it a quote of about $26 an ounce, and that gives us a number of $12,225.32 a year, or about $1,000, $1,018 a month, $1,018 per month for the lowest wage guy, and that's in denariuses. But let's do the highest paid individual, who would get 15,000 denarii, and see what we come up with there. All right, this is interesting because these guys made, well, a lot of money, a lot more than the other guys. So we were just discussing the centurions under Augustus. We came up with the lowest paid guys getting 3,750 denarii a year, 3,750 denarii. And the highest ranked guys are at 15,000 denarii. So I did the math. 15,000 times 3.9 grams per denarius equals 58,500 grams. Now that equals 1,880.8187 troy ounces of silver. You multiply that times $26 an ounce, and we come up with $48,901.28 today. Now, of course, some people think silver could be worth a lot more today. This is the ancient world we're talking about. They never saw a large 4.9 fine silver coin before. Could you imagine if they did, though? But just based on the math here, again, the high-ranked guy, 48,900, not bad. That's pretty good money, even today for someone who's in the military service. But you do the math with silver. Again, if you start increasing the amount silver is really worth and its purchasing power, you start adding to it, that number could change quite quickly. Essentially for every dollar silver changed in its value today, in today's money, you would have to adjust the yearly salary according to this math by $1,880 per every dollar that silver changed. Because again, that's how many ounces these guys were getting. That's the best way to do the math, is these guys were getting 1,880.8187 troy ounces of silver per year. So you can always do the math that way and figure out what a centurion, a high-ranked centurion under Augustus, was being paid. And as we go forward and look at the many other denariuses in these videos that we're going to cover, we'll see the debasement and devaluation up close and personal. The silver content of the denarius under the Roman Empire after Nero was about 50 grains, or 3.24 grams, or approximately a tenth of a troy ounce. The fineness of the silver content varied with political and economic circumstances. From a purity of greater than 90% silver in the 1st century AD, the denarius fell to under 60% purity by AD 200 and plummeted to 5% purity by AD 300. They absolutely destroyed their currency. I mean, if this isn't a model for what they did to the US dollar and I'm telling you, you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it, right? By the reign of Gallienus, the Antoninus was a copper coin with a thin silver wash. And we've talked about that. I showed that in the last video on the denarius, the first denarius that we covered. We looked at the Antoninus. It's a very long and difficult currency. It's probably the hardest name of any coin I have ever read. But essentially, it was devalued dramatically by the reign of Gallienus, and like we just read, it became a copper coin, essentially, with a thin silver wash over it. By comparison, a laborer earning the minimum wage in the United States in January of 2014 made about $58 for an 8-hour day before taxes, based on the mode value of $7.25 an hour, which was true then in 20 states. And an employee earning the minimum wage in the United Kingdom in 2014 made about £52 for an 8-hour workday before taxes. Let's give you an idea. This is from the article that we're getting this information from. But again, silver in the ancient world, comparing prices, what people needed to live, it was just much different. But again, it looks like silver, for much of its time as money, did have a much stronger purchasing power. And of course, if the pendulum ever shifted in that direction, we would see some dramatic rises in silver prices. That's why it's always fun to discuss these from a historical point of view. In the final years of the 1st century BC, Tincomarus, a local ruler in southern Britain, started issuing coins that appeared to have been made from melted down denarii. The coins of Epilus, issued around Calava Atrebatum around the same time, appeared to have derived design elements from various denarii, such as those of Augustus and M. Voltaeus. Even after the denarius was no longer regularly issued, it continued to be used as a unit of account, and the name was applied to later Roman coins in a way that is not understood. The Arabs, who conquered large parts of the land that once belonged to the Eastern Roman Empire, issued their own gold dinar. The lasting legacy of the denarius can be seen in the use of the lowercase d as the abbreviation for the British penny until 1971. It also survived in France as the name of a coin, the denier. The denarius also survives in the common Arabic name for a currency unit, the dinar, used from pre-Islamic times and still used in several modern Arab nations. The major currency unit in former Principality of Serbia, the Kingdom of Serbia, and former Yugoslavia was, again, dinar, and it is still used in present-day Serbia. The Macedonian currency, denar, is also derived from the Roman denarius. The Italian word, again, like we read yesterday, dinero, the Spanish word dinero, and the Portuguese word dinheiro, and the Slovene word dinar, all meaning money, are also derived from the Latin denarius. Isn't that just incredible? We can also compare the wine price at the height of the Roman Empire. A sextarius, which was 546 milliliters, or about 2¼ cups of ordinary wine, cost roughly 1 dupundius, or eighth of a denarius. After Diocletian's edict on maximum prices were issued in 301 AD, the same item cost 8 debased common denarii. This was roughly an increase of £1, 1 British pound, to approximately £3 and 20 cents, or pence, however you guys in Britain do it, 3.20 in the modern equivalent, which would be, I think it's about $2 if I'm not mistaken, £2, about $6.40, $6.50, maybe close to $7 US dollars for 2¼ cups of wine. Now, here's where it gets really interesting as well. In the New Testament, the Gospels refer to the denarius as a day's wage for a common laborer. It's in Matthew 22, chapter 20, verse 2. In John chapter 12, verse 5. In the book of Revelation, during the third seal, black horse, a choinix, a quart of wheat, and 3 quarts of barley were each valued at 1 denarius. Now, Bible scholar Robert H. Mounce says, the price of the wheat and barley as described in this vision in the book of Revelation appears to be 10 to 12 times their normal cost in ancient times. Revelation describes a condition where basic goods are sold at greatly inflated prices. Thus, the black horse rider depicts times of deep scarcity or famine, but not of starvation. Perhaps that black horse was the black horse of hyperinflation. The English word quart translates choinix. Apparently, a choinix of wheat was the daily ration of one adult. Thus, in the conditions pictured by Revelation chapter 6, the normal income for a working class family would buy enough food for only one person. The less costly barley would feed 3 people for 1 day's wages. The denarius is also mentioned in the parable of the Good Samaritan, Luke chapter 10, verses 25 through 37. A great story. This is a good one. To render unto Caesar, that passage is in Matthew 22, chapter 22, verses 15 to 22, and Mark chapter 12, verses 13 to 17. It uses the word, and I can't pronounce it in Greek, but it's to describe the coin held up by Jesus, translated in the King James Bible as a tribute penny, and it's commonly thought to have been a denarius with the head of Tiberius on it. So that is a lot of information. Again, each one of these, we're just learning vast amounts of stuff. There's so much to cover when it comes to discussing every single one of these ancient coins. I mean, you could do a 3-hour special on each coin. I mean, that's the whole point here, is I'm trying to, if anything, create a little archive of videos that you can go to when you want to learn about particular coins in history, and just visit the playlist and see how we got to where we are today. It's just another service I'm going to try to do with this channel here, and we've got the resources to do it. We've got some coins that we're going to be able to showcase going forward. So I appreciate each and every one of you taking the time to participate, to join in these discussions. I read all of your comments below. I read all of them. Believe it or not, we do. We see every comment. We try to really at least take the time to answer the ones we can when we have the time. And I just appreciate those of you who support this channel, stand by this channel, and make it what it is. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you on the next one.